Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Maharaj, thank you very much blessing us with your association and such a wonderful class explaining 10 subjects of Bhagavatam and also describing the power and sweetness of Krishna. Maharaj, you mentioned about that scientists are bewildered, just by one universe, what to speak of the millions of universe which is, produced by Krishna. In terms of like teachings of Prabhupada, and we know that Prabhupada actually told that they never landed on moon, when earlier the moon landing issue was there. Now recently also there are so many episodes about landing on moon. So how do we understand from the scriptural point of view whether this is like really a moon or something else?
Okay. Well, in one place, probably. Well, they may have landed on the moon, but they didn't appreciate the moon because the real moon is like Svargaloka. It's part of Svargaloka and has heavenly pleasures, and the spacemen cannot enjoy those heavenly pleasures. They get in a spacesuit, and they're very limited in what they can do, and then they run away back to Earth again. So they're not really enjoying Svargaloka as such. So even if they go, they can't really contact. So it's something like demons seeing Krishna. They see Krishna, but actually they're not seeing Krishna. They cannot appreciate Krishna because they don't have spiritual eyes. So a demon sees Krishna like Shishupal. He doesn't appreciate Krishna at all, even though he's fighting with him and whatever. But he cannot really appreciate Krishna, so he's not really seeing him. So the astronauts are not qualified to enter into the moon planet Svargaloka. So they can go somewhere, which they'll call the moon, but they can't really enjoy. So in that sense, useless for them. So that's the main idea. Whether they actually went to the called the moon or not doesn't really matter because they can't enjoy the pleasures of the moon as described in the Bhagavatam. You have to do the punyas to get to the real moon that way with a special body, not with this body.
Maharaj, one question. Among all the incarnation, Krishna is one of the incarnation.
Well, we call him, he's not really, we call him Avatar, but we also call him Avatari. He is the source.
He's
of
original Krishna.
He's the source of all the avatars. Yes, when he comes in the material world, he is Krishna. He is not anything except Krishna. Of course, Krishna is eternally in the spiritual world, but he's also in the material world, not just in one form, in many forms. He's in many universes in the material world simultaneously. One after the other he appears, so he's in so many universes right now. Plus he's in the spiritual world. How he can do that? Because he's God, and his forms are all over. Without any effort. Same Krishna can be everywhere.
He is the one who is in Goloka Vrindavana, comes in here as a original Krishna.
Yeah.
This is Abu Dhabi's Avataridesh.
Thank you so much, Maharaj, for a wonderful class. My question is, you mentioned that when Krishna comes, all the forms of Lord enter his body. So how do we understand this vis-a-vis a Mayavadi conception of merging into the Supreme? They also say that merging into Supreme. And so how do we understand this?
Well, merging in the Supreme in the impersonal way, that means that Jiva seems to disappear and gives up his individuality and identifies himself with Brahman. So that's the Jiva. One form of Krishna can merge into the other form of Krishna because it's all Krishna. It's not a Jiva, it's all Krishna. So there's no problem for that. And he always has this personal identity in any case. But when the Jiva merges in the Supreme Lord, then he loses his personal identity. He thinks he is the Supreme Lord, so that's not good. But the Lord is always the Lord, so it doesn't matter if he merges into another form of the Lord or not.
Sorry, extension to the same thing is that in Pralay, even the Jivas, they go back into Vishnu. They enter Vishnu.
Yes.
Yeah. So, but again, there it is Jiva entering into Vishnu.
Yeah, but they maintain their individuality and they come out again with all their karmas again. Exactly the same karmas they got into Mahavishnu. They come out with the same karmas later on and they go back to a universe and they start off where they left off in the previous universe. So they never lose their individuality.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. One question is that at the time of initiation of all our karmas get washed away, but after that some devotees still there is difference between some devotees and the other devotees after the initiation. So how we should understand that?
Well, even before initiation, all your karmas get washed away. Ajamil chanted the holy name once without initiation, without even being a devotee. Accidentally, he just said, your name is Narayan to his son, and all of his karmas, past, present, and future, got destroyed. So actually, if we just chant Hare Krishna once, all our karmas are destroyed. Even if we do it accidentally, the Muslim chants Hare Krishna, or the postman chants Hare Krishna, or the person in the store chants Hare Krishna, even that is enough to destroy all your karmas, past, present, future, provided there's no aparad. Because not only initiation destroys your karmas, but of course, if you never chanted before in your life and you got initiated, then you get to start bhakti, then your karmas get destroyed at that time. And also bhakti in general, not just chanting Hare Krishna, but any form of bhakti is enough to destroy karmas. So the first characteristics of bhakti in the nectar devotion is klesha agni, destruction of karmas, destruction of not only karmas, the desires that create the karmas, and avidya, or ignorance, which is the source of all of our desires. All of that, which includes ahankara, which is mentioned in this verse, the knots of cutting the knots of avidya. And so bhakti does that. It gets to the root by destroying ignorance, plus the desires, plus the karmas. And any form of bhakti can do that. But the most powerful means is name of the Lord. So even before initiation, your karmas are all gone. But even if the karmas are gone, it may look like there's karmas. As in the case of Ajamil. He didn't look like he was any different. And he didn't know either anything was different until the Yamadutas came for him. And then the Vishnudutas came and said, you can't touch him because he hasn't got any karma. So nobody knew all his karmas were destroyed. Even Ajamil didn't know. Exteriorly, he looked the same person, same sinful person, doing sinful activities. But even though he did sinful activities, there was no karma. But he didn't even know that. So, even if the karmas are gone, externally, it may look like everything is going on like karma, but it's not going to karma. So we can't really tell whether our karmas are there or not there at all. They may be hidden. However, with aparads, it's not a quick process, it's much slower, and some of your karmas remain.
Maharaj, in the class you mentioned that Brahma does not create the bodies. So what does that mean?
No, he does create the body. He creates the bodies and the planetary systems. Material bodies, that is. Yeah. So we find that he does this, there's a whole description in the fourth canto also. Third and fourth canto is a description of how there's different levels of creation where we get the plants and the animals and then human beings. Of course, he creates Manu and his wife, and they start creating progeny. The Prajapatis and everything come out of this. And they create the lines, and then we get demons created and all this. So, primarily from Brahma.
Maharaj, you mentioned about atheistic Kapila. That
Yeah.
is a Kali Yuga incarnation, or that is a previous? Because this
Doesn't
is
mention when he was, but I think in terms of modern thing, they calculate him probably somewhere back about 1,000 years ago or so, 2,000 years ago or something like that. I don't know when exactly, but all these philosophies, Nyaya and Vaisheshika and Samkhya, they've been current for quite a long time. It seems they appear every day of Brahma also. All the bad things also appear every day of Brahma. All the Mayavad philosophy appears, and Samkhya and all these things also appear every day of Brahma. Because they're mentioned in the Brahma Sutras also, all these different philosophies, and they're all refuted. So Vedavyas wrote that 5,000 years ago. So they seem to be eternal deviations, misinterpretations of scripture, where they come out every day of Brahma.
I've got a two-part question. The first is, how do we know that we are chanting well? And then the second part is related to just related to what you just said about karmas being destroyed at initiation because we chanted, or before initiation we chanted.
Yeah.
So, if we are still suffering materially, why are we still suffering materially if our karmas are completely destroyed? Or we are not chanting properly, or we haven't chanted properly?
Yeah. So as I said, even if they are destroyed, you may not know they're destroyed because you may look exactly the same as you were before, as in the case of Ajamil. And even if a person is prema, he may also have accidents, he may also get sick, and eventually he dies. And we say, oh, he's also got karma, but actually he hasn't got any karma. So this is what we call an appearance of karma. So Baladev Vidyabhusan in the Brahma Sutras says it is like a piece of singed silk. If you take a piece of fine silk and you put it near a flame, candle flame, but you don't burn it, you get very close to it. You get close and take it away, and it looks like silk. If you touch it, it just crumbles away. It's not. So your karmas are like that. With the, even though they're destroyed, they look like they're there, but actually they're not there. So that's what the appearance of karma is for the devotee. But as I said, bhakti should destroy all the karmas, the holy name should, but Ajamil had all of his karmas, past, present, future, destroyed. Even the future karmas were destroyed because he chanted without offense. If there is offense in the chanting, then it'll be lesser degree of destruction of karmas. Of course, destruction of karmas itself is not the goal of bhakti. It is simply a byproduct. And therefore it happens very easily with the case of even Ajamil who accidentally chants. If we have aparad, then the process is slower. And therefore we go through these different stages like anartana vritti and then nishta, ruchi, asakti, and then bhava and prema. There's a slower process with definite stages because some aparad is there. So therefore the destruction of karmas and art is much slower. So therefore the problem could be it's an appearance of karma, or secondly it is because some aparad is there. Of course the other is that not exactly even conscious aparad, it could be some unknown aparad from previous lifetime even could be interrupting the process.
How do we know that we are chanting purely?
Oh, how do we know we're chanting purely? Well, we look at scripture and see what is pure chanting. So this was the topic actually yesterday in the noon class. Pure chanting means knowledge to destroy ignorance, which means knowledge of who is Krishna, knowledge of who is Jiva, that he's not God, but he's separate from God, he's a servant of God, knowledge that the holy name is non-different from Krishna, and knowledge of the goal, that the goal is not material benefits, not liberation, but prema. So if we have knowledge and we chant, that's one aspect by which the abhas, or the impurities, go. The other is anartas. We have different desires. So desire for enjoyment in this lifetime, desire for Svargaloka next lifetime, desire for liberation. These are all not proper to have. So therefore we try to do bhakti without asking the Lord for these things. So that creates, that destroys that anartha. The other aspect is of anartha is we call weakness of heart, things like greed, envy, desire for fame, etc. These the strong desires which are there. So how do we get rid of that anartha? By, of course, not indulging in them. If you have a little bit of greed, we try to restrict that greed. And then through the process of bhakti itself, we have anartana vritti. Bhakti destroys the anarthas, so by doing bhakti nicely, then those desires and tendencies will get less and less. So in this way we come to the level of pure bhakti, pure chanting. Yeah, so bhakti destroys aprarabdha and prarabdha karmas, both. Usually people will say, no, prarabdha karmas cannot change. If you're born a Sudra, you're a Sudra all this life. If you're born a Chandala, you're a Chandala for this life and you can't change it. Whatever. Everything is fixed in this lifetime. But Rupa Goswami, quoting from Padma Purana and other places, even Bhagavatam, says, no, your prarabdha karmas are also destroyed by the process of bhakti. Jnana and yoga, okay, no prarabdha karma destroyed. And karma yoga, definitely, they don't destroy any karma. They just modify your karmas into punyas and get rid of your bad karmas, but they don't really change much. But bhakti can destroy all karmas, prarabdha as well as aprarabdha. Therefore, Bhagavatam says that if a dog eater who by karma is in a low birth chants the holy name of the Lord once purely, he is better than a brahmana, because all his karmas got destroyed by chanting once the name of the Lord purely. So he's beyond the brahmana, he's higher than the brahmana who's stuck in sattva. He is nirguna by chanting the holy name. So therefore he's qualified to do the sacrifices that a brahmana can do. So that's an example of destruction of the prarabdha dharmas.
Maharaj, you were explaining about Sankhya philosophy of artistic Kapila. What is the Sankhya philosophy of?
Yeah, so Kapila's, he has aspects of Sankhya in the sense that he analyzes the material elements. Okay, we have earth, water, air, fire, ether, then we got the senses, and we get the sense objects, and we get the sense devatas, and we get mind, intelligence, false ego, mahatattva, prakriti. That's Sankhya. And then
Krishna.
and then we have the jiva. But the atheistic Sankhya does not have a supreme lord there.
Krishna.
But Kapila's philosophy in Bhagavatam, he has Supreme Lord at the top. So that's the big difference. The other is atheistic, the other has a Supreme Lord.
Maharaj, what is the Karam Mimamsa philosophy and why it is
That's atheistic also.
Sorry?
It's atheistic also.
So why it is atheistic, Maharaj?
Yeah, it's Jaimini's philosophy. Who we say is a Vaishnava, but actually he's like Shankaracharya, he's also a Vaishnava, but he's creating a false philosophy. So Jaimini has the idea that just do your karmas, like sacrifices, and go to Svargaloka, and that's eternal. And you don't have to rely on the Lord for anything. The Lord is also dependent on karma. So that's technically no supreme Lord beyond the material world. So it's atheistic. Yeah. Even though he's following the Vedas, he omits the Supreme Lord, and you just do your activities, go to Svargaloka, finish, and they see eternal.
And
So,
you don't come back from there?
huh? And then you fall down. But they say he says eternal. So you don't fall down according to him.
Swarga is eternal.
Yeah. It says Amrita in the Vedas, so therefore that's he quotes that, you know. Svarga is Amrita, it's eternal, therefore you don't fall. Of course, if we read Bhagavad Gita, we do fall from Svargaloka, but he ignores that.
Maharaj, how to understand the difference between material body and the spiritual body? Like material body is made up of 8 elements, and we have some of the subtle elements transferring in the material spiritual body also, or it is like
No, the subtle material elements are also temporary, but of course, relatively speaking, they're eternal in the material world because your subtle body goes from birth to birth to birth to birth. Yeah? But it accumulates more and more karmas and more desires as you go on. But if you get liberation, even impersonal liberation, you destroy the subtle body as well as the gross body. This material elements also, made out of prana and so many other elements. So likewise, if you go to the spiritual world, then definitely the subtle body as well as the gross body get destroyed. But that doesn't mean you can't think in the spiritual world or you don't have any intelligence. You also have intelligence there, but it's spiritual. And you even have an ahankara. A sense of I is there. So each person in the spiritual world has a sense, I'm a copper boy, or I'm a manjari, I'm a gopi, I'm an elder, whatever. They have a sense of I, and they have senses, and they have mind, and they have experiences. Well, there's like the material world in which we have a body, and they're doing activities, they have hands and feet, etc. But it's all non-material, spiritual, and unlimited. And here we are subject to, if you don't breathe, you die. If you don't eat, you starve. And if you don't drink water, you dehydrate. Not like that in the spiritual world. We're not dependent on material elements there. Don't get old. No aging. No death. So body and soul are one in a sense.
So subtle elements also get destroyed here in the material.
Yeah, they're elements also. So they're made out of material elements, so they get destroyed.
Maharaj, as you said that we all are Krishna's children, we are all born to Krishna. we are part and parcel of Krishna. But there are certain people here in this material world who are non-believers of Krishna. So if we are born from Krishna, how come it is that some are believers and some are non-believers? I mean, belonging to different faiths.
Well, as we see here in the purport, Prabhupada says we've forgotten. We're ignorant. We're in the avidya, state of avidya. So most of the jivas in the material world are in the vidya, like the dogs and the cats and the plants. They're completely covered over. And as human beings, most people are also covered over. So they don't realize they're Atma. They think they're the body. So this is called ignorance. And when we get to the level where we're Atma, we're not the body, then that's called jnana. That's called knowledge, or vidya. But it's not complete. After we understand we're not the body, we're Atma, then we also have to understand we're the servant of the Lord. And that is incomplete if we don't get that far. If we just think I'm not the body, I'm Atma, this turns into impersonalism and just mukti, liberation. So the next stage of knowledge is to understand Supreme Lord exists and the jiva is the servant of the Lord. So that's complete knowledge.
Maharaj, Sisubala was always blaspheming Krishna. Even then, how did he get the Saikya Mukti? And also, we would like to know, atheists, so-called atheists also, they always say, against the God. Will they also get liberated, the same as Sisubala?
Yeah. So Sisubala is a very great, we could say, an example of great mercy in one sense of Krishna, because Krishna is more merciful than the other forms. We see that Krishna kills demons and they go to the spiritual world, like Putana gets killed by Krishna and goes to the spiritual world. So that usually doesn't happen with other demons. They kill a demon like Nrsimhadev kills Hiranyakasipu. Hiranyakasipu does not go to the spiritual world. He becomes Ravana. And Ramchandra kills Ravana. He also doesn't go to the spiritual world. He becomes Shishupala. When Krishna kills Shishupala, he goes to the spiritual world. So Krishna is very special in terms of when he kills demons, he can get a better result. But then there's an explanation for that. It's not just mercy. And that is that it's because when Hiranyakasipu saw Nrsimhadev, then he was not overly attracted to him. He just says he was in Vishnu, form of Vishnu, and I can probably kill him, so he fought with him. And when Ravana saw Ramchandra, then he said, okay, he says, Vishnu is a material being, I'll fight with him, try to kill him. But when Shishupala, same person, seeing the Lord 3 times, saw Krishna, he could not forget Krishna. Why? Because Krishna is all attractive. So in spite of his hatred of Krishna, he kept remembering Krishna. So he became absorbed in Krishna, in hatred. And he absorbed in chanting Krishna's name in hatred, rascal Krishna. So by that absorption in the Lord in hatred, eventually all of his anarthas got destroyed. And when they were all destroyed, then Krishna threw his Sudarshan chakra at him, and when it touched him, he got prema, and he went to the spiritual world. So it's the special nature of Krishna and the attraction to Krishna that even the demon gets purified by constant meditation on that form that allows them to get a spiritual body in the spiritual world. So a special nature of Krishna.
Maharaj, in Vaikuntha Loka, Lakshmi Devi also possesses Chaturpuja form, or how?
Usually we don't see her in that form. Of course, Lakshmi, like the Supreme Lord, has extraordinary powers, and we see Durga Devi even has thousands of arms or whatever. So probably the Lakshmi could also manifest those arms. Usually we don't see that, but it could. She could if she wanted to.
What about the female, the body, one who is taking the female body in Vaikuntha Loka?
Yeah.
So there also looks like a Lakshmi Devi, or how they?
Similar. Yeah, just like we have the male forms look very much like Vishnu, so then the female forms very much like Lakshmi. They're all very beautiful.
You nicely explained about this concept of appearance of karma, but sometimes the suffering could be really, really intense. I know of a specific situation, a devotee family, and a teenager boy who was also chanting, worshipping deities, and it is said under influence of some ghostly power, he attempted to commit suicide, and then he survived, but he is now pauper. I mean, he's just like in a coma situation. So he was chanting, worshipping deities. The whole family is very nice. So how to understand this one. The suffering is so intense that it is kind of disturbing the Krishna development of Krishna consciousness.
Well, we find intense suffering even in the Nitya-siddhas, like the Pandavas. They had to undergo intense problems for 13 years. And we find that example of Prahlad also. His father tried to kill him how many times? 7 times, 8 times, 9 times, or whatever. Tried to kill him. So, but of course that's part of the lila of the Lord, and we cannot attribute that to karma at all. So for the Nitya-siddhas, it looks like intense suffering, but it's lila for the pastimes of the Supreme Lord, like that. For people in the material world that may undergo suffering, as I said, sometimes there are karmas from previous lifetime that have not been erased, and there may be aparads from previous lifetime that are there, so therefore the karmas are all not destroyed in this lifetime. So that may be there also. Others could be arrangements of the Lord in some cases for certain purposes.
So in this case, now it is just wait and watch. I mean, over a period of time, because anyway they have practiced bhakti.
Yeah.
So over a period of time, the karmas will obviously go, and then they will.
Yeah.
Get
Whatever bhakti is done is never lost. Also, so the body is a temporary manifestation.
Thank you.
In what form Krishna exists in Goloka, child or young? Mother Yasoda is experiencing Vatsalya Rasa, and Gopi is experiencing Madhurya Rasa simultaneously. So Krishna is considered to be Kaishore age, which is about 11 years old in the spiritual world. That's his most beautiful form. And he has the 3 ages, his Komara age, his Poganda age, and then his Kaishore age. So his Kaishore age is considered to be the climax of all beauty. So that's his form in the spiritual world, because he doesn't get born and grow up there. He's just one age there. So that's his age there. And in the spiritual world, different devotees have different rasas. So the elders have Vatsalya rasa with Krishna. And cowherd boys, who are his age, have Sakya rasa. The gopis have Madhurya rasa with Krishna in the Kaishore age. And they don't change their rasas. They eternally have their highest bliss with these particular rasas, so they don't change those rasas. And everyone can have different rasas for Krishna, just as in this material world, you have different rasas with different people. So your children have one relationship with you, your friends have another relationship with you, your boss has another relationship with you, so all sorts of people have different relationships with you. So Krishna has all these different relationships also. And of course they're spiritual relationships, and they're also perfect. Krishna responds to each person to nourish that particular rasa.
Maharaj, is it right to say that Bal Gopal form is not existing in Goloka, or it is not correct?
Yeah. Well, in one sense, it is said that though Krishna is in the Kaishore form in the spiritual world, still the aspects of his Kaumara or his Poganda age are appreciated by the persons in Vatsalya Rasa or in Sakya Rasa in the Kaishore period. In other words, in the Kaishore period, they can still see Krishna as a small baby. Mother Yasoda can still treat him as a small baby, and the friends still teach him as an equal in the Poganda age. So that's the potency of the Kaishore age.
So they can still see the childhood pastime of Krishna.
Yeah, they can appreciate him as a small child, in spite of the fact that he's still a little more grown up.
How does bhakti affect the birth chart predictions?
Oh well, bhakti destroys all karmas. So therefore, your karmas are no longer there. But as I said, a pattern may remain. Even in the case of a prem bhakta, so we may be able to predict some sickness in a person with prem bhakti because a trace of karma remains or whatever like that. But technically, it's no longer karma; it's under the Supreme Lord. It's not under the law of karma anymore.
Maharaj, what's the difference between pure bhakti and sattva guna bhakti?
Sattva guna bhakti leads to liberation. And pure bhakti leads to prema.
Hare Krishna. Maharaj, as we know that the bhakti is never lost, and if the bhakti is unsuccessful, you'll get Suchinam Srimatam Gehe. So even if little amount of bhakti is done and then you indulge in wrong activities, then also still you are having aristocratic birth and you are given a human body, or how to understand this?
Even accidental bhakti. is good. And like Ajamil or anybody, they just contact accidentally and they don't even know it. They take prasadam or whatever. That has an influence on the Atma. And all the accidental bhakti eventually leads to faith. And with faith, then they can consciously do bhakti, which speeds up the process a lot.
Well, the previous question answer you mentioned about patterns that are visible in terms of birth charts, patterns are visible. Maharaj, at what stage of development of our faith should we try and study those patterns and do that? Because for a neophyte it may be very, very confusing and it may actually disturb, we may develop more faith in the system than Krishna himself or Bhakti. So how to understand this, Maharaj, how to
Well, if we mature in bhakti, we have no interest in our karmas anyway. We become detached from our material body, etc. So there's no interest in that at all. For those who are more attached to the body, then they will have some interest in it. But then we realize that ultimately bhakti will destroy that. So if we do have bad karmas, then we do more bhakti.
But Maharaj, we also see that devotees to understand to have a situation that is more favorable to practice of bhakti, they want to study their own patterns.
So they can do that. But as I said, the best way of improving is by performance of bhakti. So if you have some bad karmas, then you do more bhakti and then you improve your situation.
Maharaj, Srila Prabhupada, we like once he said, the only fools and rascals go to the astrologer. But other places, Bhagavatam, he is glorifying the astrology being the part of the Vedic science. So this seems contradictory, and what we have seen, at least I have seen that the marriages which are based on the horoscope, they fall apart and they don't survive. But I've seen the marriages which where there is no horoscope, like Muslim and Christian, even Hindu families, still they survive. So how do we?
Sometimes, not all the time. I don't know, if you take the actual rates, you may find something different, because I think in most places, in the material world, marriage is a failure. The normal marriage, like in America. How many marriages succeed? I don't know. It's not a very good rate among the people in the material world. So it's not just those that are arranged marriages. It's in the material world, I think it's a high rate of failure also. Or in Islam, it doesn't really, there's no record, I think, because you can just divorce your wife by saying goodbye, and that's it, So there may be many failures there, but it's not recorded at all. So we cannot say that, that there's more failure of arranged marriages or through horoscope marriages. Of course, there's also a problem there, because it may not be done properly also. Even the astrological combination may not be properly either. So it's a matter of the expertise of the astrologer also.
So what Prabhupada is speaking different times, so there are different things about astrology.
Yeah, well, if we use astrology the wrong way, then it's bad. Either unqualified astrologers or over-dependence on astrology. That's bad. But we see astrology also is part of the Vedas. Jyotish is one of the angas of the Vedas since ancient times. And it's also one of the activities of a brahmana. And that's mentioned in some place, I think in Chaitanya Charitamrita or whatever, that the tradition, everyone goes to the astrologer when the child is born, he gets a chart drawn up, and we see that Lord Chaitanya's chart is there also, his thing, and they drew up a chart for Lord Chaitanya, etc. And when Parikshit was born, they made a chart, and then the people were praising him for his predictions for his future, etc. So it was very commonly done among people to cast the chart, so they could understand something of the future of the child. So it's not all wrong, but as over-dependence becomes a problem.
Sure. So Brahma creates the body, and as per our karma, Vishnu or Yamdut takes our soul after our death. But we still can find ghost prevalent in this material world. Ghosts.
Oh, okay.
So how those souls are remaining here if Vishnu Dut or Yamdut is taking our souls? Why those?
Yeah, well, obviously they didn't chant Hare Krishna.
But they are supposed to be taken by Yamaduts, no? Even if they are not, whatever souls they are.
Yeah. Well, so this is a certain case, suicide cases, certain types of death, in which the coma, for instance, they may become ghosts, too much attached to the material body. they become ghosts because they don't want to go to the next body, so they're hanging above their body, which may not be cremated, so they're in the graveyard above the body, somewhere like this. So there are cases of over-attachment, etc., which may lead to that ghostly type of existence also, which is like a hellish existence in one sense. And therefore, the Shraddha ceremonies are done to prevent that from happening, and also to prevent from hellish existence, so that they can quickly get another body.
But still, these souls are very powerful. In some places, we can say they say it's don't go. It's very prohibited. This how these souls get so much energy. I mean, how they because it's Krishna is controlling everything. How this negative energy is getting souls.
Well, they're just like people also. If you go to certain places, then people can talk to you or influence you or whatever like that. So it's like that. But they just don't have a material body. Because they don't have a material body, then we don't know they're there maybe, so we become more susceptible to them and their influence. They can also, because they do have subtle bodies, they can also enter into your subtle body, which is a little problem. So you can become almost schizophrenic or haunted or whatever like that by them, because they can possess your body also.
Jai Granth Srimad Bhagavatam ki
Jai.
Srila Prabhupada ki
Jai.